Going to get started. Okay, let me just share my screen here. And Jeff, if you can help me with the recording. Okay. Is everyone able to get to see my screen? If you could just give a thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so we are now in part 2, course 2, however you want to refer to it. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump in. We don't really need to introduce ourselves because we saw you guys yesterday. But before we jump into course 2, I just want to take a moment for us to think about our experience in course 1 and describe your top takeaway from the course and reflecting upon last week in 1 to 3 words. So a very succinct summary, and go ahead and put that in the chat box. Oops. Learning, nice and simple, yep. Okay, so a lot of stuff about tools, engagement, learning. We are just going to go ahead and continue along that path for course 2. Lots of new ideas today. I'm sure you will take a lot of new ideas away from today's session. So with course 2, it has the same name, but it's part 2 of this course on creating opportunities for engagement and learning for students online. Whereas course 1 really focused on sort of the live synchronous webinar, course 2 is going to focus a bit more on asynchronous learning. So learning that would happen in like Moodle, for example. And what does it mean for engagement and responsiveness, and what does responsiveness look like in an asynchronous environment in terms of facilitation? And then we're also going to look at technology to support engagement and deeper learning. So we're going to start today with an activity called a chalkboard splash, but it's not going to be an actual chalkboard, it'll be a virtual chalkboard. So we're going to use a tool called Padlet. Some of you I know already know of it. I had seen you reference it in some of your work in course 1, but Padlet is like a virtual chalkboard. And so I'm going to show you just the basics of how we'll use it, and then I'm going to send you a link and we will try it out ourselves. So this is Padlet, my screen here that you're seeing. And like I said, it's like a virtual chalkboard or virtual bulletin board. And what you're able to do, once I send you the link, I'm going to ask you a question that I'd like you to respond to. And in order for you to do that, when you're in the Padlet, you just will click on the little arrow down here, I'm sorry, the little plus sign. And then what happens is you get a little Post-it note. And so then you'll just put your name in the top, and then you'll write your response to the question. When you've finished putting down your thoughts and ideas, looks like I'm muted. Can you guys hear me?
Now we can. You were muted for a sec, but you're good now.
Okay, good. I don't know how that happened. Okay, so you'll write your response to the prompt, and then you will just click anywhere outside of that to post your response. This is a collaborative board, so everybody can see each other's responses. So again, you'll just click the plus and then write your response. So the question is, and I just want you to think about it first, and then I'll share the link where you should respond. How does technology change the way we teach and learn? And now in the chat, I went ahead and put the link to the board. So you can just click on that link.
There is no link.
Yep, sorry, I sent it to the wrong area. So you can just click on that link and then post your thoughts or your response to this question. How does technology change the way we teach and learn? And I'll give us a couple of minutes to kind of get our thoughts up there, and you'll be able to see other people's responses popping into the screen as you're typing your own. And once you've finished posting your own response, I encourage you to just take a look at others' responses. You'll see that there's a little like heart button. So if something really resonates with you that one of your fellow participants said, you can like their response by clicking on the heart.
My link, do you click it or paste it? Because I click it and nothing happens on my computer.
The link to
You click the chat, is what you said.
Yeah, I'll post the link one more time. So you can either copy and paste it or click the link in the chat, and it should open up a new window for you.
Okay. Yeah, I can't get in.
Okay, this sounds a little silly, but I typed it in, I hit enter, and then it had a lot of options. They're uploading things, but I don't see that it actually got added.
Your response,
Yes.
you will, let's see, you might have to kind of just scroll down or scroll around to find it. They kind of reordered themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, it's possible that it didn't post either, so you might need to try again. Okay, so as we're still kind of continuing to post here, I'm going to switch my screen over here to the actual Padlet. And so you can see everybody's been able to share their opinions on this topic. And again, like I was saying, you can interact with these posts as well. So like if something resonates with someone, you can click the heart to like it, and you can comment, so you can kind of further the dialogue here. So now that most of us have posted our thoughts and ideas here, I want to take a minute to kind of analyze our thoughts on this topic and what technology does for teaching and learning. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here. Not that you do not have to respond to this on the Padlet, but what I would like for you to do is look at all of the responses now that we've gathered, and just kind of either mentally note or even jot down on paper, what are some of the common themes or ideas that you see on the board? And then once you identify some common themes that have emerged, go ahead and share those in the Zoom chat.
If we have gotten out of the Padlet, how do we get back to looking at it?
You can either click the link again.
Chicken ball. Nope.
You can either click the link again, or like I have it, I just keep it open in a separate tab, in a separate window from my Zoom. Okay, so I'm gonna.
Okay, can I ask again? I'm
sure
sorry. How do you actually post? Do you hit enter and that posts it, or is there another button to click? And which button do you click?
You don't need to do, yeah, to post, you can just click the little, little pencil.
I did that.
And then when you're finished writing, you just click anywhere outside of the note and it'll automatically post. So you don't have to hit enter, you just can click outside of the post and then.
Great. Okay, that's helpful. It doesn't say to do that, or I missed it. So I've tried to do it twice, so I'll try to catch up.
Okay, actually, that is one kind of feature of Padlet that is a little bit non-intuitive, which can be frustrating, but I think that the benefits of this tool really outweigh any of those very small little challenges. So I just kind of want to look at some of your responses. I see accessibility, broader impact, more and less engagement. It's challenging, that's for sure. Shifting and pivoting, challenging, increased access, definitely. So we do see a lot of common themes here in amongst our responses. Challenge and opportunity, I would agree with that. So we're going to go switch back to the presentation in Zoom here. And for myself, I kind of have identified some of what I think are some of the big benefits of online learning. And many of these we've actually said. It allows for flexibility. It can be really motivating to learners because it's on their schedule, anytime, any place. You have a further reach. So if you think about when you were teaching or facilitating trainings in a classroom, you could only reach the people that could get to that physical classroom, but now you can reach people across the whole country. It also accommodates different types of learning. So, you have learners that don't necessarily love speaking up in a real life, classroom-based environment, but it gives different learners a voice. An online platform does. And by nature, it's learner-centric. And again, it's easy to offer different choices and opportunities for learners to pursue different paths. So these are all just some of the benefits of online learning. So what we just did, this activity, I like to kind of also just debrief and share so that you could use this in your own environment, was a chalkboard splash. And so these are just the steps that you would do to take this. And you can do this with a Padlet. You can do this with Post-it notes in an actual physical classroom. There are many different ways you could do this, but you basically create a prompt and you ask your learners to respond, first kind of taking some time to gather their thoughts. And then they respond like as you all did and post to the board. And then the third piece is asking your learners to analyze the responses by comparing and identifying common themes so that they can think a little bit deeper about where everybody is at on this topic within the classroom or training environment. So I just wanted to share that with you as we start to dig in now to our topic. Okay, so I want to start by talking about cognition, levels of complexity, and deep learning. And so some of you, probably many of you, recognize this or a version of this. It was used, this idea was used in your webinar planners. What is this? Bloom's taxonomy. So this is one of many different frameworks that sort of allow us to look at different levels of cognition and complexity in learning and thinking. And so, we move from what we call lower order thinking, which is kind of your just basic remembering, recall, identifying type activities. And then at the top, you have your higher order thinking activities, which are creating new things, evaluating information, analyzing, really more deep. These are tasks that really allow for deeper learning and lasting learning to occur. So in our training and learning environments, we really want to focus on the higher order thinking and providing opportunities for learners to engage in higher order thinking to create opportunities for lasting learning so that they're able to walk away with it and do something with what we've learned. So along those lines, I kind of just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of levels of cognition and learning. There's this idea of cognitive engagement. And so we talk a lot about engagement. We've talked about engagement since day one in our courses. And how do you get learners really bought into learning and excited about learning? So I'm going to add to that idea of engagement by talking about cognitive engagement. And so what you see on the screen here is a quadrant model for evaluating cognitive engagement in your learning environments. So this actually comes from a book called Total Participation Techniques. I highly, highly recommend it. I'll share the resource in the course as well so that we make sure we have it. But there are a lot of really, really great ideas in this book that I use still to this day. And one of my favorite ideas that comes from this book is this quadrant model, which I find as a very useful tool in looking at, what type of learning is taking place in my classroom. So we'll start, and I'll kind of just talk us through the different quadrants of this model. So we will start with quadrant 1, which is low cognition and low participation. How many of you recognize or remember this movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off? I love using this one as an example, but we have this teacher who is the perfect example of what not to do. And basically in this scene, right, he stands at the front of the room and he asks these questions that are very basic questions. What is the name of this treaty? What year did this happen? And then proceeds to answer his own questions. So that type of learning obviously is not what we want to do. And that would be sort of your quadrant 1 learning, which is low cognition and low participation, meaning students there's simple basic questions and students are not participating. So stay away from quadrant 1. Ferris rules. Quadrant 3 is high cognition, low participation. And we actually see this a lot of times in classrooms or training environments. And so this is where you might have a teacher providing a lecture or something like that. And then the teacher might pose a question that's a challenging question. So, what's your opinion on why X is better than Z or whatever? And then in that classroom environment, all of the hands go up, or some of the hands go up, and a teacher chooses one learner to respond. And that student is being cognitively engaged. But what about the other learners in the classroom? They're not being given the opportunity to be engaged in a challenging way. So we want to also stay away from quadrant 3. So really, we want to make sure we're in quadrant 2 and quadrant 4 as much as possible in our environments. So quadrant 2 is what we call low cognition, high participation. And this, an example of this, if you were on yesterday's webinar, would be like the Kahoot game we played with Emma. Quadrant 2 is not a bad thing, by the way. It's okay to be there. But this is the type of questions that Emma asked in the Kahoot game were recall questions, right? So like, what was the name of the movie that Jeff mentioned in webinar 1? Or, what is our learning management system? But by nature, Kahoot allowed every single person to participate in that experience. So it's not just one student that's doing the learning and the mental work. All students were able to, and it was engaging. And then finally, we have quadrant 4, which is where I believe the book recommends like 70% of your time we want to spend in quadrant 4, but I basically just say as much time as possible because this is where the real learning happens. So this is high cognition, high participation. And an example of this would be like in a course discussion board where a challenging question is posed and every person gets to respond to that question and then also respond and engage in dialogue with others. And so I give these examples to illustrate how we can make sure that all students are being engaged and active and are really learning, and how technology really makes that possible in a way that many times, you can't really ensure that in a face-to-face environment. So I wanted to share that. I find it a very useful tool. I encourage you to kind of walk away with it and reflect on, where does your learning fall in these different quadrants. Okay, so in this webinar, we're going to tackle some learning strategies and some tools that support them. But before we jump into that, I want to take just a little commercial break. So I'm going to share a video with you.
Emma. Huh? Emma.
Not anymore.
Emma.
Every day it's getting on my nerves.
Emma.
Oh, I'm
Emma.
begging you, please.
Emma.
Leave me alone. Oh, you
Okay, I love that little commercial. And so I share that for a reason. I share that as sort of a cautionary tale. In that we are going to share some more technology tools today. Emma shared quite a few yesterday. But really the focus is not on the tools, it's on how you use the tools and why you're using the tools. So before making any decisions about technology, really consider your learners and your end goals first before making any decisions about technology. And what is appropriate for your learners. So I know often what comes up in these trainings and other trainings is that you know, all learners don't have access to vast amounts of technology, and that's fine. You know, I think Jeff mentioned in the first webinar, I used to oversee technology for a school in Rwanda, and we were able to do so much being still in a resource limited environment. So you know, you have to first just consider what do learners have access to before making any decisions about technology. But I would say it's possible in almost any environment to use technology. Then my recommendation is choose one tool and learn it well and incorporate it in different ways, especially if you're new to technology and teaching online. You know, we're going to show you a lot of tools. The idea is not that you learn them all. The idea is to give you examples and different resources, and then for you to kind of make the choice about what makes sense for you, what resonates with you. And all of the tools that we share are really, really versatile tools. They can be used in many different ways, like Padlet, for example. How we used it today, you'll see there are many other ways you can use this one tool. And so just take that and start small and then grow from there. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. Yes, Dawn says, don't use technology for technology's sake. And that is exactly right. So we're now going to jump into some learning strategies and tools. So I'll start with kind of providing a research-based strategy that will move learners towards you know, deeper and lasting learning, and give some examples of the strategy. And then I will share with you a tool or a piece of technology that can help use the strategy to promote cognitive engagement with students. And as I'm kind of going through these different strategies and tools, please feel free to share in the chat any examples you have used, or if you're familiar with the tool, how you might use it. You know, we're here to all kind of learn from and share ideas with each other. So the first strategy we'll start with is activating prior knowledge. And this is what we should do at the start of any training session, really. And this is why I have an on-off switch, right? Because we can think of this as like turning on your brain and getting ready to learn about whatever the topic is. And so this would be, yeah, so your participants are getting primed for the topic at hand, so you're not jumping in cold. It allows learners to bring to the front of their mind what they already know in preparation to build upon that knowledge. And then as a facilitator, this is an important step because it allows you to see what they know, what your learners know, and you can see, are there any common misconceptions that maybe need to be addressed, or, you know, where is my starting place? Maybe you planned a little bit too advanced, or maybe not as advanced as you should have. And so asking learners to just physically show what they know is a really good gauge for you as a facilitator as well. And I think, you know, many of us know this and we do this. What are some ways that we, again, share in the chat if you have ideas too, but what are some ways that we activate prior knowledge? So one of those is brainstorming. The chalkboard splash is a perfect example of this. I asked you your opinion about a topic and everybody shared before we jumped in. You know, creating mind maps, the old KWL chart where you talk about what you know, want to know, and what you've learned. This is a classic, but it's a really great tool that can be used, you know, in many different ways. And you can actually do KWL charts on Padlet. Polls and pre-quizzes, or resource previews. So even just allowing learners to get into the course early and look around, or kind of preview things at their own pace before a learning session occurs. Okay, so I'm going to talk just a little bit now about the tool that we use, Padlet, so that you guys have a kind of an idea about other ways you can use it and how the tool works. And let me also stop here and say that all of these tools that we talk about today are in the course as part of what we call the Tech Tool Playground. I'll actually just pop over there really quickly to show you. So if you'll see, the course is divided into 3 sections. In the part 2, you have what's called the Tech Tool Playground. And here you'll see the different tools we'll talk about today. When you click on them, you'll get a brief description of each tool. And then for each one, it's like a playground. You have the opportunity to participate in an activity and get the feel for it as a learner, and how a learner might use this in a course. So you, again, you have the whole week to play around with these things. So don't worry if you don't, you know, things are not 100% clear on how you use it. All that information is in the course. So with Padlet, so, you know, this is an example of our chalkboard splash here. One of the really cool things about Padlet is that it's really kind of customizable. So because I created this Padlet, I can actually move things around. I can change the order of things. So if I'm teaching with Padlet and I want to highlight a certain response, I could make it first. If I really want, I could also change the color if I wanted to really highlight something. So that's one really cool thing about Padlet. I will show you another thing. So when you sign up for Padlet, you can use all of these different types of formats. So just depending on what works for you. In the course, you'll see a map format. There's just lots of different ways you can use it. So I encourage you to explore that. I'll be providing examples from my own experiences and also from courses and workshops I've facilitated, just to give you a little context. But about 3 years ago, I participated in an online education course, and our first assignment was that we had to share an all about me, but we had to do it with like a technology tool. So I chose Padlet because it's probably my favorite. And so I did like an all about me. And this is just an example to show you that you can also create kind of little connector points like mind maps, and you can add pictures. And then the final kind of format I will share with you. This is I think it's called a shelf format, but you can organize things in categories. And so I will often use Padlet for different workshops and trainings to help organize the tools. And then I share with participants, and they can also post their own resources and interact with things. So there are just endless possibilities for using Padlet. Okay, I'm actually going to skip over strategy 2 and come back to it. I just want to make sure we have enough time for some of the other ones. So strategy,
Rebecca,
yes.
just a quick question.
Mhm.
So in Padlet, could we use something like Tableau or one of the other big data illustrations? And I'm not fancy with it. I just know like 3 things so I can impress my husband. So I'm just saying, if I'm doing, okay, you people need to get used to the fact that I'm old. So if I learn 2 things in technology, you should give me a standing ovation. That's all I'm saying. But if we're teaching something and in Tableau, you can show, big sets of data in a really pretty way and make it really interesting. Can you do that in Tablet, or do you have to just like paste it in or something?
So there are 2 kind of different tools that we're talking about here. Tableau is a data visualization tool. Padlet cannot handle creating those data visualizations, right? Like that's a powerful tool on its own. But if you wanted to take that data visualization and you wanted to pair it with other information or share it with others in a certain way, you could use Padlet to post it on the board. So if you had something relevant for learning, for example, and you wanted to share it, what I would do is I would create a post, and I got to go down to the bottom. And then from Tableau, you'd either need to download your visualization as a image file, or if you can link to it, which I think sometimes you can publish and link from Tableau in whatever way you're able to share normally. You can, when you create a post in Padlet, you can actually upload files. You can link to files. So if you had a link, you could paste it there. You can actually snap photos from your camera on your screen. So you can do lots of different things. You can record your screen. This is not specifically answering your Tableau question, but I'm just sharing with you that there are many different things that you can include in a Padlet post. So long story short, yes, you could upload that visualization or share a link to it, but it would not be, you wouldn't be creating the visualization, of course, in Padlet. Hopefully that answers the question. And this is another reason why I really love Padlet, because it's like everything is contained within one environment. So, even if I wanted to, I can draw something if I wanted to, and post that on the board. So it's not just text, which makes it more engaging and more dynamic too, when you ask people to include images, links, things like that. Okay, I lost my mouse. Okay, so now let's shift to the next strategy, which is collaborative social learning, which many of us also already do. And so this is just providing the opportunity to build new knowledge through a shared experience with others. And by providing opportunities for collaborative and social learning, it allows learners to not only make connections to themselves, but to others, and just really kind of grow their ideas and knowledge in a certain topic. Of course, it's active and learner-centered by nature, and also learner-driven. When you have people working together on a certain task, they drive the learning, which is what we want. And then one of my favorite things, and this kind of speaks pretty specifically to providing opportunities for like peer or reciprocal teaching. There's research that tells us that when we provide opportunities for students to teach each other, deeper learning and deeper processing occurs, leading to lasting learning. So if you think about it, when I'm kind of receiving new information or I'm learning new information, if I learn that information with the expectation that I'm going to have to then teach someone else how to do it, I'm going to think about that differently than I would if I'm learning new information and it's just for myself. You know, in my mind, I think, oh, well, I have to remember the name of that, or is this going to be on the test, that sort of thing. But if I am learning it and then I know in the back of my mind that I have to then teach someone else how to do this, I'm going to think about how do I translate that into something that's understandable for someone else. And it kind of requires some manipulation of the information in your brain that really helps, it helps some staying power, I would say. So some examples of what is collaborative social learning: project or problem-based learning, so providing students opportunities to you know, create something or tackle a certain problem. Peer teaching, like I just referenced. Case studies, I know a lot of you guys use different types of case studies in your work. That would be an example, asking someone to tackle a case study together. Or role plays, of course, are another great example of that. So one tool, or I shouldn't say tool, but like suite of tools that very much complements collaborative opportunities for collaborative social learning is the whole Google suite of tools. So, you know, you have docs, slides, sheets, maps. I think probably many of you are familiar already with these tools, but if you're not, I mean, they're very similar to basic Office, you know, Microsoft Office type like tools, but they allow people to collaborate in the same space together on a shared task. And so, like, just some examples that I have in ways that you can use them. One is for group presentations. So if you want to ask a group of students to tackle a certain topic within an entire course, it's really easy to use Google Slides for learners to work asynchronously and in different locations to build a shared presentation, because they can communicate directly within the Google slideshow, and they can each kind of tackle different areas. Another example that I have, this is actually in the course, so you can take a look at it, is like a group jigsaw or any kind of group shared document. And so I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. But the idea here is that you're creating a space for groups of students to work together to share what they've learned or share knowledge to build an entire document that kind of highlights different areas of knowledge within a course. And so, like, this example here is one I used many years ago, but you know, each students are designated to groups, and each group is responsible for like digesting a certain bit of information and then kind of summarizing it here in a different space. And so one of the important things when you are using like shared or collaborative documents, especially for a large group of students, you want to make sure that whatever you create actually has physical space in it. Otherwise, it gets a little out of control. So like here, I always use, if I'm going to do a collaborative Word doc, I always create things in tables, because there's a clear space for each group to share their thoughts and ideas, and you're not doing work over each other, which can be a little frustrating. So that would be one of my tips, just to kind of share with you guys. I also love these types of activities for having students, you know, just share different resources, ideas, whatever, because it's, when you're asking them to complete an activity like this, you're kind of accomplishing multiple things at once. One is that they're learning as they're kind of creating this information, right? But the other cool thing is that they're then creating their own resource and source of information that can be referred back to throughout the whole course. So they're socially contributing to the knowledge base of materials and resources in your own course. So I think that that's a really neat aspect of creating these kind of shared knowledge type documents and activities. Okay, let me just go back. Okay, the last tool that I want to talk about within Google is My Maps, and I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with this. I know everybody probably knows about Google Maps, but there's a part of Google Maps called My Maps that allows you to create your own maps. And I choose this one to talk about specifically because I know a lot of you guys work within, you know, community-based environments and organizations, and do a lot with mapping. And so My Maps is a great way to allow learners to create a shared collaborative map. And you could take this idea and run many different directions with it, but you know, basically you come in here into My Maps, you create a new map, and then it's just kind of like a Google map, but you're able to drop pinpoints wherever. You can zoom in, zoom out, you can search. Like this is my hometown actually. So if I wanted to create a pinpoint, I can just add it to my map. You can actually add images or videos. You can change the color, you can add descriptions. So you can really make it like a robust pinpoint. And then as you can see here, you have this ability to share. So if I was working collaboratively on creating a map of resources with someone that's in the same location as me in the course, for example, we can share this together and build it together. So that's just the My Maps side of Google Maps. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention about that, and the reason I like it, is because I see a real application for this too. I really try to create opportunities for learners to participate in activities that are, you know, related to the real world. And so when they walk away from a course or a training, they're able to use that in real life. And I could really see a use for this. So if you know, learners are participating in a training, they could then take this actual map that they've created now and take it back to their organization and to their whatever they're doing, and use this map as a resource with their coworkers and whomever else. So I like that it's grounded in kind of a real world use too, where it can be. So I've thrown a lot of information out at you, and I just want for you all to think right now about how you might be able to use some of these collaborative tools like Google Docs or Slides or even My Maps in your course or training, or Padlet even. But if you just can think about if you have any ideas, and just put that in the chat. And I know that there's been a lot going on in the chat, and thanks to Jeff and Emma for really addressing a lot of the questions and things. But also, as people are sharing, we'll make sure to export the transcript of this chat as well, so that you can see each other's ideas that we've been sharing throughout. Oh yeah, Padlet for strategic planning. That's a really good idea, actually. Yep. Yeah, I had a feeling that there's a lot of ideas for shared maps here, collaborative docs to answer questions. Actually, collaborative docs are great. Many of you talked about the use of breakout rooms in your webinar plans. Collaborative docs are excellent, almost necessary for those types of activities to help everybody kind of stay on track and really have like a central place to share their ideas and then share with the larger group as a whole, for sure. So really, there's so many ideas. I can't even read through them all, but lots of great ideas being shared here for how we can use these different tools in our environments. Okay, so the next strategy we're going to jump into is how can we use like dialogue, questioning, and opportunities to reflect to promote deep learning and cognitive engagement. So when we're asking learners to reflect on things or to ask questions about things to further their kind of knowledge about something, we're giving them opportunities to assimilate whatever knowledge they've gained thus far, meaning that it can now be incorporated into a larger picture of their understanding of a topic. This also gives them the opportunity to consider real world applications. So everything we do should be grounded in the real world, especially working in the fields that we all work in with adult learners. And so it's very important to give your learners opportunities to reflect on how can I take this from my Moodle course and drop it into my real world environment. You know, it provides some perspective and it challenges the learner, especially through questioning. You're able to push learners farther, and it gives learners opportunities to evaluate their own learning, not just evaluate whether they got it right or got it wrong, but like the whole learning process. And so I'll talk about that here now. So some examples of how this might look, you know, kind of digital storytelling. So talking about your own experiences with a certain topic. I love student posed questions. So asking students to, you know, generate the questions that others might need to answer, or generate more questions that they have, which is a great way to encourage learning to continue beyond a classroom. When we think about reflection for learners, we have a couple of different types of reflection. So, you know, one would be, I'm going to skip here to the last one, what is called the MVPI. I didn't make this up, but most valuable piece of information. And so that's kind of asking learners to identify what is the one thing that I learned from this class that's important, and how is it important in, how am I going to use this when I walk away from the class? The other type of reflection that's important, though, are like learning oriented or metacognitive reflections. So this is giving learners the opportunity to think about thinking or think about their learning, and just think about the process that has taken place. And for example, in an online course like this, you know, how did you approach your learning? You know, think about how did you approach your learning in course 1 and what might you do different in course 2? Those types of questions that are targeting the actual learning experience and the thinking that's going on, and not just the content. Okay, so I'm going to talk specifically about, I'm going to share 2 tools about ways that you can use to reflect using multimedia reflections. So we ask you in different ways in the course to reflect via text or by responding to something in a discussion board. But there are also ways that you can get learners to reflect and talk about something using more than just text, using video or audio. And so there are 2 tools. One is called Flipgrid, which is a video-based tool, and the other is called Synth. And again, I'm going to just kind of highlight these from a high level. Then you have the opportunity to choose one or both to explore within the course to kind of learn more about with whatever you feel comfortable with doing. I'm going to actually start with Synth. So Synth is a really cool tool that allows you to post audio reflections. And so this is the one, or I'm sorry, just post audio in general. It doesn't have to be a reflection, but so this is the one that you'll be able to explore in our course. But the idea is you create a Synth like topic board, which I have called facilitating discussions. And then through that, you're able to post audio recordings. And so what I would do is I would just come and click the plus to start a new recording. And then I record my thoughts. So I think that today's webinar was the best webinar I've ever attended. So I just posted my reflection, and then I just kind of follow the prompts and it'll put it all together for me. And then I can just give it a title. I can also post a link. So if I'm sharing something and I reference a link, I can paste it here for others to see. and then I give it final approval. And then basically it's shared to this board that I've created that the whole class would have access to via an access code. So on this board, now you'll be able to see these examples yourselves, but we have all of these different recordings. So I started with my introduction here. Again, you can explore this in depth in the course, but then you'll see within each audio posting, others can comment on the posting, and they can comment with an audio comment. So if I just say create thread, so like in the same way that a discussion board has a main post and replies, and then you can create threaded responses throughout, you can do this with audio as well, with this tool Synth, so it's not just typing. And so then again, you can kind of interact, you can like post, you can respond to others' responses, and you can leave comments. So maybe I don't really want to give an audio response. I feel more comfortable typing a comment. I can also type my comments. So it offers some learner choice here as well, between what format you would like to use. So this is one, again, that you'll be able to kind of dig in and explore. Just as a quick other example, like when I deliver workshops and different things, one way I use this is I ask learners to, at the end of the session, I set aside 10 minutes, and this has been previously in person, but it would also work very well online, go to a separate corner of the room and give me a 1-minute post about what did you learn today and why it was important. And I like the idea that you can share your recording, and then others can also listen and reply and add. So it's like a growing source of knowledge and opinions, and it's not just kind of this one and done reflection, but it can be a living reflection, really, that can continue to evolve and others can learn from. And then along those same lines, I will show you the tool Flipgrid, which is similar, but this one uses video. You will have an opportunity to participate in this one as well in the course. It's the same exact idea in that you would create a board or a space. So I created this for all of the PD that Jeff, Emma, and I have been doing for NeighborWorks. But you create the central space here, and then you invite others to the boards. And so the one fun activity we've created for you to try is just an icebreaker, 2 truths and a lie. But I'll show you an example from a previous class so that you get the idea of what it might look like. So what we did is, we created our prompt here, which is tell us 2 truths and a lie. Most people know this training icebreaker, and then we have to figure out which one is the lie. And then Jeff and Emma and myself created our own videos and posted them. So then you can see other people were able to come in, they were able to leave comments on our posts, as well as create their own posts, and everybody can watch each other's videos. Flipgrid is really, really fun because you can also add little emojis and you can change things around. You can get so creative with it. So again, you could use this for a reflection at a midpoint or at an end of a class. And it's a great way to encourage others to interact with each other in a video-based way. And I also will say that you do not have to use video. So I know that some people might be uncomfortable with putting themselves on camera. And so if learners are hesitant to do that, you have an option to not use your video, or you can put an emoji over your face. I've done that before, actually. So there's a lot of different opportunities to accommodate, different levels of comfort with doing this sort of thing. I also think that this would be a really, really cool tool to do like role plays. So as a facilitator, I might kick off the role play with like a video that I then want others to respond to. How would you respond to this? And then I deliver the prompt, and then I ask them to respond in a role play type situation. that's a wonderful way that you can do an asynchronous role play. So you don't have to be live and in person together to still get that great experience. So like I said, there's a lot of things you can do with all of these tools. They're so flexible, and you could use I could use this one tool from the beginning to the end of my course in multiple ways to engage my learners and just really create opportunities for fun and deep learning. So I'm going to give you one more stop and think here. So we have opportunities for discussions already within our Moodle course, but what might be the benefits of offering a video or audio-based asynchronous discussion versus just text? So think about that and share your ideas in the chat. Just for a change, yeah. Some people are audio visual more than just writing. Definitely engagement, it humanizes people. Yeah, and you will, if you're gonna take course 3, you're gonna learn all about what we mean by humanizing instruction, but it's a great way to put a face and a voice to a name when you are so far apart. And so having multiple ways to comment in the discussion is difficult. I can see how it would get confusing. And so I want to take this moment also to just kind of reiterate that, like, I would not advocate for using all of these tools within one course. I would pick one. What is the one out of all of these tools today, you know, Padlet, all of the Google tools, Synth, Flipgrid, I'm sure that there was one that maybe resonated the most with you, or there was one activity that you were like, yeah, I could totally see this working in my class. And so that's the one I would encourage you to kind of pursue first and learn more about within the Moodle course. And yes, pick what aligns to the objective, of course, too, and what is right for your learners, and considering that. Okay, so as we're kind of wrapping up here in the last minute, I want to leave you with this thought from Seymour Papert, who is really just one of my, if not my, educational hero. He was an educational technologist at MIT. He has so many wonderful sayings, but the goal is to teach in such a way as to produce the most learning from the least teaching. And this means, I really just want to make everyone's job easier, but no, this really means that learning is the responsibility of the learner. We need to put that in their hands, right? And we need to facilitate that, but the learning should be done by the learner. And so hopefully all of the examples that I showed today demonstrate how we're able to shift that learning from teacher-centric and focused to learner-centric and focused. So again, you have your tech tool playground in the course. I encourage you to start exploring that, as well as going through some of the other resources and then some of the discussion activities that we have set up for you. The course is open in Moodle, so if you haven't logged in, please do so. Our discussions this time are going to be in small groups. So we still have our kind of general networking forum that you can just say hello, but the actual discussion is going to be a small group discussion. So you'll get to experience what that's like versus the whole group discussion. So you'll just kind of follow the steps in the course. And then for your portfolio assignment, your small group discussions, please have your initial response submitted by Wednesday and then respond to your peers by Friday, just so we can ensure that everybody's talking. And then for your portfolio assignment, we encourage you to share with your small group and get their feedback. It's a very, it's a practical application, so it would be very beneficial for you to get their feedback. But then in terms of the requirement for the course, please make sure to submit it via the course assignments page, same way as yesterday by 5 p.m. next Monday. And again, this is like a prerequisite to take course 3. So you'll need to make sure to get that in so that you can then continue on to course 3. In the 1 minute I have left, Jeff and Emma, am I missing anything or leaving anything out here?
No, there's a robust conversation going on in the back channel. And like you said, we'll make sure that gets out to everybody. Good examples.
We had one question about yesterday's webinar. Like we said, this is the quickest turnaround we've ever done with these courses. So we've got that downloaded. So we will put that into course 1, just like we did to keep all the resources together. But it'll be in the announcement area if you missed the webinar from yesterday or just want to watch it again.
Great. All right, well, thanks everyone. And we will see you in the course. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks all.